I'm hoping next year sometime. There's a lot required because it is, I'll just tell you this, it's an acid trip when we wrote it. It is like, I've never read anything like it.
Mel Gibson has never been a stranger to controversy, but what he recently revealed has reignited one of the most debated films in modern cinema. In a candid conversation, he pulled back the curtain on the Passion of the Christ, hinting at events, decisions, and consequences that challenge both Hollywood norms and public perception. Was it simply a film or something far more unsettling behind the scenes? Supporters call it a masterpiece of conviction, while critics see it as dangerously polarizing. Now, with new claims surfacing, the line between artistic vision and deeper implications grows increasingly blurred and impossible to ignore. A dark night of sacrifices. Imagine standing at the absolute pinnacle of global stardom during the late 1990s, universally recognized and commanding unparalleled industry influence, only to find yourself completely submerged in a profoundly dark night of the soul. Mel Gibson was experiencing exactly this sort of internal desolation, while the rest of the world saw only a titan of cinema. Instead of seeking refuge in standard commercial projects, he made a radical vow to tell the raw and unfiltered story of the crucifixion, stripping away the sanitized theatricality of mid-century biblical epics. He wanted historical and visceral realism, a vision so intense and uncompromised that it terrified the Hollywood establishment. Every major studio, including giants like Disney and Paramount, took one look at the pitch and slammed the door completely shut. They saw a highly risky project completely devoid of commercial appeal and overflowing with potential controversy. Faced with this universal wall of institutional resistance, Gibson committed an act of absolute financial martyrdom. He systematically liquidated his own personal properties and real estate assets to self-finance the entire endeavor, putting up $45 million of his own money. $30 million went directly into the production budget, while another $15 million was set aside for marketing. He was betting his entire accumulated fortune on a concept that industry executives considered absolute insanity. Central to this massive gamble was a commitment to total linguistic immersion. Gibson and co-writer Benedict Fitzgerald crafted a script that would be spoken entirely in dead languages, specifically Aramaic, Hebrew, and Latin. Actors were forced to learn their lines phonetically to achieve a level of fluency that would satisfy the harshest linguistic scholars. During a recent long-form discussion with Joe Rogan, Gibson clarified a common misconception regarding these ancient dialects, noting that there are actually around 400,000 Aramaic speakers remaining in the world today. He expressed immense satisfaction that these remaining communities found the linguistic efforts of the cast to be credible. By stripping away recognizable English cadences, he forced audiences to engage strictly with raw emotionality and visual weight. The studios thought the lack of English dialogue and conventional bankable stars was a guaranteed recipe for total financial disaster. Instead, this uncompromising pursuit of terrifying historical authenticity resonated on a massive scale, eventually grossing an astonishing $611.9 million at the global box office. Gibson proved the existence of a massive and completely underserved global audience, turning early Hollywood rejection into a truly historic and monumental cinematic vindication. The metamorphosis of the Savior. With the monumental financial and linguistic framework established, the production faced an even more profound challenge. Mel Gibson was not searching for a recognizable celebrity to headline his cinematic gamble. He needed an actor willing to surrender completely, someone who could transform his own body into a literal canvas for pain. The search concluded with Jim Caviezel, and his selection immediately introduced a series of eerie, undeniable parallels that felt less like standard Hollywood casting and more like a spiritual draft. At the exact time of filming, Caviezel was 33 years old, matching the traditional age of Jesus Christ at the time of the crucifixion. Furthermore, his initials were JC, a deeply striking coincidence that cast a heavy sense of providential significance over the entire production. Caviezel understood the gravity of the role and initiated a brutal physical and spiritual metamorphosis. A devout Catholic, he demanded to receive the Eucharist daily before stepping in front of the camera. He believed this strict religious regimen was absolutely necessary to remain squeaky clean in a spiritual sense, allowing him to authentically embody the figure he was portraying. Faith on this set was not merely a thematic element in the script, but a deeply lived reality. The physical toll exacted upon Caviezel was agonizing and relentless. His daily preparation involved a grueling logistical nightmare. Every single morning he sat in the makeup chair from 2 in the morning until 10 in the morning. For 8 uninterrupted hours, a dedicated team of artists painstakingly applied single strands of beard hair and covered his entire frame in elaborate prosthetics designed to mimic severe trauma. The physical demands extended far beyond mere cosmetics. To accurately simulate the horrific facial swelling resulting from the biblical scourging, artists cosmetically glued one of his eyes completely shut for weeks at a time. This severe visual impairment and constant facial tension triggered blinding, debilitating migraines that plagued Caviezel relentlessly throughout the grueling 5.5-month shoot. He was not merely acting out a sequence of suffering. He was physically enduring a daily marathon of excruciating pain and sensory deprivation. This total immersion blurred the line between performer and subject, creating an atmosphere where genuine physical agony merged seamlessly with the required emotional depth. The sheer endurance required to withstand this daily metamorphosis elevated his performance from mere portrayal to a profound act of personal sacrifice, completely transcending the ordinary boundaries of traditional cinema and forever changing the actor who lived the role. The physics of genuine agony. The production of the film rapidly devolved into a relentless physical ordeal where standard safety boundaries completely dissolved. During his recent extended conversation with Joe Rogan, Mel Gibson bluntly admitted that the staggering authenticity captured on screen was literally paid for with bones, blood, and heartbeats. The level of physical trauma endured on set remains largely unparalleled in modern filmmaking. While filming the Sermon on the Mount sequence on location in Matera, Italy, a terrifying environmental anomaly occurred. Jim Caviezel was struck directly by a bolt of lightning. Stunned witnesses on the crew vividly described the horrifying sight of fire coming out the right and left side of his head. His entire body momentarily illuminated against the stormy sky like a Christmas tree. This was astonishingly not an isolated incident. Assistant director John Michelini was also struck by lightning on 2 separate occasions during the shoot, casting an undeniable atmosphere of intense environmental volatility over the entire production. Beyond these terrifying atmospheric events, the kinetic energy of the physical performances resulted in devastating mechanical failures. During the grueling filming of The Way of the Cross, Caviezel was required to carry a massive 150-pound solid wooden crucifix through the narrow ancient streets. In one catastrophic take, an actor playing a Roman soldier missed a crucial physical cue and failed to catch the heavy cross as Caviezel fell to the ground. The immense weight of the timber crashed violently down, crushing Caviezel entirely. The crushing compressive force instantly dislocated his shoulder and caused a severe, painful rip to his AC joint. The agonizing expression of sheer torture visible in the final cut of the film is not a crafted Hollywood performance. It is the immediate documentation of genuine medical trauma. The nightmare continued during the brutal scourging sequence. A severely misaimed strike from a leather whip bypassed the safety post and lashed directly into Caviezel, tearing a massive gash into his flesh and leaving a permanent 14-inch scar across his back. Furthermore, prolonged exposure to the freezing, biting Italian winter while wearing almost nothing caused him to contract severe pneumonia and a debilitating lung infection. The compounding physiological toll of the lightning strike and the immense stress ultimately necessitated 2 major open-heart surgeries in the years following the completion of the film, proving the ultimate physical price exacted by the project, forever altering his health long after the cameras finally stopped rolling in the dust of that one ancient Italian city. Entities of the supernatural realm. Transition from the visceral physical destruction of the human body to phenomena that completely defied basic logical explanation. The production set was not merely plagued by terrible luck or harsh environmental elements. Multiple accounts suggest it was actively occupied by unseen forces. As the intense filming progressed, deeply chilling reports began to surface among the crew regarding the sudden appearance of mysterious men in white. These were not extras or recognized members of the vast Italian production staff. According to multiple verified accounts from seasoned technical professionals, these individuals dressed in pristine white clothing would quietly approach the crew and provide highly specific, brilliant directions regarding the complex lighting of specific scenes. The crew, assuming these men were specialized consultants brought in by the director, followed their incredibly effective instructions without question. However, the terrifying reality soon became apparent. Whenever someone turned around to thank them or ask for further clarification, these men in white completely vanished into thin air. Furthermore, despite the presence of numerous documentary cameras capturing behind-the-scenes footage and continuous rolling security tapes monitoring the closed sets, these pristine figures never once appeared on a single frame of film or digital recording. It was as if they existed strictly in the immediate physical space, but mysteriously left absolutely no technological footprint behind them whatsoever. This supposed angelic assistance was sharply contrasted by a completely different and truly terrifying kind of spiritual manifestation occurring simultaneously. Rosalinda Celentano, the actress tasked with portraying the deeply unsettling androgynous version of Satan, recounted a vastly different and terrifying experience. Throughout the grueling duration of her specific scenes, she described a suffocating, heavy, dark presence that seemingly clung directly to her physical being. Mel Gibson directed the character to embody a sinister distortion of beauty, an entity that takes every single opportunity to make humanity suffer through quiet, alluring repulsion. Celentano bore the absolute brunt of this conceptual darkness while performing in those incredibly isolated shooting environments. The spiritual weight she carried created a palpable, suffocating tension that blanketed the entire set, standing in absolute terrifying contrast to the profound aura of mercy and divine love continuously emanating from Jim Caviezel as he endured his physical torment. This bizarre dichotomy forces one to seriously question the very nature of the environment they had constructed. A harvest of transformed souls. The intense, suffocating atmosphere of the production did not simply stop at physical trauma or unexplained phenomena. It penetrated deep into the psychological core of the cast. For several actors, stepping onto that set resulted in a complete shattering of their personal worldviews, leading to profound spiritual transformations that mirrored the weighty themes of the film itself. The most striking example of this psychological upheaval involves Luca Lionello, the Italian actor specifically chosen to play the betrayer, Judas Iscariot. He arrived on the massive production set as a loudly avowed, angry atheist. He harbored deep skepticism regarding faith and initially possessed absolutely no intention of participating in any of the religious rituals occurring daily among the crew. Yet, the sheer, undeniable gravity of the daily performances slowly broke down his hardened defenses. By the time the exhausting production wrapped, his deeply entrenched skepticism had completely collapsed. During the subsequent dialogue dubbing process, the transformation culminated in a desperate act. Lionello tracked down Father John Bartunek, the Catholic priest who had been shadowing the entire production, and urgently demanded a formal confession. This profound spiritual awakening prompted the former atheist to sanctify his marriage, baptize his children, and fully return to the church he had previously mocked. An equally staggering psychological reorientation occurred with Pietro Sarubi, the actor tasked with embodying the brutal criminal Barabbas. Mel Gibson orchestrated a brilliant piece of psychological manipulation to capture genuine shock on film. He strictly forbade Sarubi from making any direct eye contact with Jim Caviezel throughout the entire production, until the exact moment the cameras finally rolled on their pivotal scene together. Gibson wanted the raw reaction of a feral creature confronting pure innocence for the very first time. When that massive scene was finally shot and their eyes locked, Sarubi experienced something completely unexplainable. He felt a literal electric current violently surge through his entire physical body. He had braced himself to look upon a man filled with righteous hatred and judgment, but instead he found an overwhelming well of mercy and divine love. Sarubi had spent years wandering the globe, desperately seeking spiritual peace in remote Tibetan monasteries and intense Indian meditation retreats. Yet, all of that endless searching abruptly ended in a single, unscripted glance on the very first take of the scene. That sudden, overwhelming encounter with absolute compassion completely derailed his wandering soul, cementing a permanent and sudden conversion that nobody on that entire massive film set could have ever possibly predicted. A cultural detonation and exile. The release of the film on Ash Wednesday in 2004 was not a traditional Hollywood premiere, but a massive cultural detonation. Mel Gibson had completely bypassed the traditional studio marketing machine, recognizing that the establishment had already rejected his vision. Instead, he initiated a brilliant and unprecedented campaign of grassroots warfare. He marketed the film directly to global church networks, providing exclusive resource kits to pastors and organizing highly private screenings for influential religious leaders. This decentralized strategy mobilized a massive, deeply invested audience that the secular media had entirely overlooked. Yet, alongside this staggering commercial triumph, a vicious and organized backlash rapidly materialized. The media establishment launched a relentless firestorm of severe criticism. Pundits and critics fiercely condemned the film for its seemingly gratuitous violence and, much more significantly, leveled heavy accusations of anti-Semitism regarding its stark depiction of historical Jewish authorities. This intense pressure cooker of controversy completely polarized public opinion and created a massive, immediate rift between the director and the broader entertainment industry. Gibson found himself engulfed in an unprecedented level of professional isolation and relentless global scrutiny. This immense psychological weight ultimately contributed directly to a catastrophic breaking point. In 2006, the escalating pressure culminated in a devastating personal failure when Gibson was suddenly arrested for driving under the influence in Malibu, California. During this heavily publicized arrest, fueled by a severe relapse into deep addiction, he made a series of highly inflammatory and anti-Semitic remarks to the arresting officer. This horrific, unforced error handed his fiercest critics and the hostile studio system the exact ammunition they needed to completely sever ties. The retaliation was immediate and absolutely ironclad. One of the most commercially successful and critically acclaimed directors in the entire world was instantly and effectively blacklisted by every major Hollywood studio. For nearly an entire decade, Gibson was forced into total professional exile, entirely unable to secure necessary funding or mainstream distribution for any major directorial projects. He became a complete pariah in the very industry he had once completely dominated, watching helplessly as his legacy was seemingly erased overnight by executives who refused to ever return his frantic phone calls. This incredibly harsh period of absolute banishment only began to finally lift 10 years later with the unexpected critical and commercial resurrection brought about by his grueling war film Hacksaw Ridge in 2016, a project that finally allowed him to step back into the spotlight after a decade of silent penance. The Price of the Cross. The profound professional fallout from the film serves as a chilling example of career assassination within the modern entertainment industry. It is a stark reminder of the immense cost associated with unwavering personal conviction. Jim Caviezel delivered a cinematic masterpiece of superhuman physical and emotional endurance that would traditionally guarantee a lifetime of prestigious leading roles and endless award recognition. Instead, he found himself swiftly and systematically marginalized by the very studio system that once highly sought his undeniable talent. Major Hollywood producers and influential directors firmly branded him with the lethal industry label of an unmanageable fanatic, effectively slamming the heavy iron door directly on his mainstream cinematic career. This harsh reality was not entirely unforeseen. The danger was openly discussed. During the initial, highly secretive casting process, Mel Gibson delivered a haunting and remarkably prescient warning. He bluntly told his lead actor that accepting this incredibly controversial role would likely destroy his burgeoning career. Caviezel absorbed the terrifying magnitude of that statement and delivered a devastating, resolute reply, calmly stating that every single man must eventually carry his own cross. Rather than desperately renouncing the role or frantically attempting to pivot toward safe, palatable commercial fare to appease the hostile studio gatekeepers, Caviezel fully embraced his newfound status as an industry outsider. He quietly accepted his severe professional marginalization, steadily shifting his focus toward independent film projects, and finding a stable, long-term home in television, most notably anchoring the highly successful series Person of Interest. For nearly 2 decades, the Hollywood establishment comfortably assumed his significant cinematic appeal had permanently evaporated. Then came the massive, unprecedented cultural vindication of 2023. It was a true industry anomaly. Caviezel returned to the big screen in Sound of Freedom, a harrowing, independently financed film dealing with the incredibly dark reality of global child trafficking. Bypassing the traditional studio distribution model entirely, the film completely shattered domestic and international box office expectations, ultimately grossing an absolutely staggering $250 million. This immense financial triumph sent a clear, undeniable shockwave through the established industry gatekeepers. It definitively proved that the massive, highly dedicated, and specifically mission-driven audience that had fully supported his performance 19 years earlier had never actually vanished at all. They had simply been patiently waiting for another powerful project that perfectly aligned with their deeply held personal values, coming together and completely bypassing the rigid studio system to grant Caviezel a monumental and entirely unpredicted career resurgence. The metaphysical war of resurrection. During his explosive 2025 appearance on the Joe Rogan podcast, Mel Gibson dropped a monumental bombshell that completely shattered 2 decades of industry speculation. The highly anticipated sequel, officially titled The Resurrection of the Christ, is finally moving forward, but it is entirely unlike any standard chronological follow-up ever produced. Gibson described an incredibly ambitious, completely non-linear mystical journey that plunges directly into the harrowing of hell. The narrative meticulously explores the unrecorded 3 days occurring immediately between the crucifixion and the resurrection. Instead of a straightforward historical drama, the film is designed as a massive metaphysical slugfest between the absolute forces of good and evil. It is a literal cinematic depiction of intense spiritual warfare that transcends ordinary human history. Gibson and his co-writer Randall Wallace spent over 8 grueling years locked in intense development, crafting a story that explores the cosmic conflict raging since the fall of the angels. However, bringing this otherworldly vision to the cinematic screen required a profoundly controversial and brutally practical logistical decision. The entire original cast had to be completely replaced. The narrative of the sequel begins a mere 3 days after the conclusion of the first film, but 21 actual years of human aging had naturally passed since the original cameras stopped rolling. The required chronological continuity was completely shattered. While producers initially considered utilizing advanced digital de-aging technology, Gibson outright refused to implement it. He determined that applying those extremely expensive digital effects across an entire cast for a massive 2-part epic would ultimately look cheap, artificial, and cheesy. He felt it would completely ruin the grounded, visceral authenticity he always demands. This undeniable logistical nightmare forced a total recasting, introducing a completely new vanguard of dedicated international actors to carry the immense spiritual weight of the entire massive franchise moving forward. Finnish actor Jaakko Otonen has been specifically selected to step into the incredibly demanding role of Jesus, tasked with portraying the Savior navigating the chaotic realms of the dark afterlife. He is joined by Cuban actress Mariela Garriga, who will take on the pivotal role of Mary Magdalene, alongside the highly acclaimed Italian star Riccardo Scamarcio, who steps into the conflicted shoes of Pontius Pilate. This entirely fresh ensemble carries the monumental burden of perfectly executing Gibson's highly experimental new vision. They must attempt to visualize a deeply supernatural realm that the original iconic motion picture only briefly hinted at through its earthly physical suffering. A catalyst for global awakening. The lasting impact of the film extends far beyond the traditional confines of the global entertainment industry. It did not simply debut and fade away. It detonated a terrifying and miraculous global shockwave, acting as a profound mass catalyst for sudden spiritual deliverance. Over the last 2 decades, researchers and religious organizations have meticulously collected thousands of highly documented audience testimonies claiming a wide range of completely inexplicable outcomes directly associated with viewing the intense motion picture. These staggering reports provide hard evidence of phenomena that completely defy conventional medical or psychological explanation. Audiences reported immediate physical healings from severe chronic bodily conditions right in the middle of crowded theaters. Others documented the sudden, tearful reconciliation of bitterly estranged families who had not spoken in decades, alongside individuals claiming to be permanently set free from deeply rooted psychological traumas, such as crippling chronic anxiety. One specific, highly scrutinized testimony came from a desperate parent who recounted the terrifying ordeal of their 12-year-old son. The boy had suffered endlessly from severe night terrors, chronic bedwetting, and dangerous sleepwalking episodes. Yet immediately after watching the visceral, bloody depiction of the sacrifice on the cinematic screen, the child was instantly and permanently cured of every single affliction, leading to a lifelong, unwavering commitment to his newfound faith. This staggering accumulation of unexplainable personal phenomena absolutely proves that the project transcended the standard medium of cinema. It ceased being a mere movie, and instead transformed into a visceral, unavoidable theological mirror reflecting the darkest and brightest parts of the human soul. Whether modern cultural critics choose to label it a cinematic masterpiece of profound spiritual cinema, or angrily dismiss it as a highly problematic and unbearably violent gore fest, its sheer cultural power is entirely undeniable. The film reached violently deep inside the collective human psyche, proving that a brutally authentic human story full of agonizing struggle and complete, unwavering dedication to a singular artistic vision possesses the terrifying and awe-inspiring power to actually alter the fundamental reality of millions who dare to witness it. A catalyst for global awakening. The legacy of this production extends far beyond the traditional confines of the global film industry. It did not merely entertain audiences, it detonated a massive global shockwave, acting as a profound catalyst for widespread spiritual deliverance. Over the last 2 decades, thousands of heavily documented testimonies have emerged, detailing deeply unexplainable phenomena directly tied to viewing the film. These extraordinary accounts include reports of immediate physical healings from chronic medical conditions, sudden and complete reconciliations among long-estranged families, and the sudden shattering of deep-seated psychological traumas. One particularly striking case involved a 12-year-old boy who suffered from severe chronic night terrors and dangerous sleepwalking. After witnessing the visceral depiction of sacrifice on screen, he was instantly and permanently cured. Whether fierce secular critics label the film a cinematic masterpiece or dismiss it entirely as a highly problematic display of gratuitous violence, it undeniably transcended the medium of standard cinema. It became a terrifying theological mirror, reaching violently and unapologetically deep inside the human psyche. This cultural phenomenon solidified the Gibson model, delivering a hard-hitting and deeply argumentative conclusion to the established industry. It definitively proved that Hollywood gatekeepers are entirely obsolete if a creator possesses an absolute mission and is willing to risk absolutely everything. Now, the ultimate test of this industrialized faith media model approaches with a staggering $200 million budget. The meticulously planned sequel will deploy with incredibly strategic release dates, dropping Part 1 directly on Good Friday, March 26, 2027, followed by Part 2 on Ascension Day, May 6, 2027. The strict laws of this new cinematic universe are now firmly established. Using ancient languages provides necessary historical gravitas, and capturing genuine physical kinetic energy on screen absolutely demands real sacrifice. The next frontier leaves historical reconstruction behind to plunge into the metaphysical realm of angels and demons.